Everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from the Daily Signal from July 17th. And I talked about something similar to this earlier this week, but it's worth repeating again because it is a serious thing. This anti-ICE violence escalates to doxing, threatening officers at home. Which again, do not do this. It is not going to end well for you. Just leaving that there. It says, ICE is trash, announced the handwritten note, placed atop a pile of garbage dumped on an immigration and customs enforcement officer's front lawn. Another vulgar note threatened the officer by name. And I hope these people are found and face the largest possible consequences they can. So such personal intimidation of law enforcement officers is part of an escalating trend of violence as the left-wing agitators that pitched Black Lives Matter riots 5 summers ago now direct their inappropriate ire against Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or of course ICE, the agency tasked with enforcing federal immigration law. After failing to deter ICE law enforcement efforts through mass rioting in Los Angeles, lawless radicals have adopted tactics that might be called more sophisticated, although they remain just as sinister. As criminals have posted flyers in officers' neighborhoods, that includes their name, address, pictures of them and their families, yet that's where it becomes a major problem. I'm sure most of these officers would say, you can do it to me, but leave my family out of it. When you start including the families, you're asking for serious problems. So now that ICE has a massive budget, thanks to the big, beautiful bill, they should probably set aside a team of people that's going to go after the people that are doing the intimidation sort of stuff. So it says, these flyers threaten officers with a text that says, no peace for ICE and chinga la migra. And yeah, I know what that means. F immigration services. So yeah, remember, people doing that, you're not the good guys. Okay, you're very much the bad guys. In addition, multiple organizations have published the personal information of ICE officers on anarchist and Antifa-affiliated websites, DHS added. At this point, again, can Antifa not be, can we not go after them using RICO charges? I mean, this is getting a bit ridiculous. Something needs to be done. It says, as a result of these doxing campaigns, as well as street agitation, violence against ICE officers has increased 830% between January 21st and July 14th of this year, compared to the same period in 2024, DHS announced in a statement Tuesday obtained by the Washington Stand. I've never heard of the Washington Stand. It says this is a sharp increase from the end of June. DHS previously announced that assaults against ICE officers increased 690% between January 21st and June 30th of this year compared to the same period last year. Fox News' Bill Mulligan obtained the underlying data, which showed that there were 10 assaults on ICE officers from January 21st to June 30th of 2024, and 79 assaults from President Donald Trump's inauguration to the end of June 2025. And Bill Mulligan's one of those guys that he's on top of this all the time. He was embedded with ICE and Border Patrol during Biden's administration, so that's kind of the expert guy that knows all this stuff. It says the unprecedented attacks on ICE, combined with the efforts of left-wing agitators to target ICE officers personally, have prompted ICE officers to wear face masks while making arrests. And now you know why they wear masks, Democrats, because you're putting them in danger. It says name a police agency that has a 700% increase in assaults. Name one. You can't, Border Czar Tom Homan said in a recent interview. So they're wearing masks to help give them some sort of protection. It says left-wing mouthpiece NPR, which somehow still receives public funding, not anymore, sought to turn masked immigration agents into a new type of boogeyman. Civil rights groups and legal advocates, this is euphemisms for those trying to prevent the government from deporting illegal immigrants, right, so say it's creating fear and undermining public trust. NPR wailed, nope, that is called propaganda, which is what NPR does. It says, but NPR inevitably gave the game away. What they're doing is actual terror, NPR quoted Job Garcia, a PhD candidate who should know better, and the pain they're inflicting on the community is huge. Well, if you knew that, first of all, before I continue with the quote, it says, if you know that you're coming into a country illegally, you have to know in the back of your head somewhere that at some undetermined point in the future, could be tomorrow, could be in a decade, could be in 2 decades, you may end up getting caught and being sent back to where you came from because you shouldn't be here in the first place. You have to know that, okay? And if you're having a family and children, you have to know that they're going to be affected by the choice that you made. Okay, so I don't like hearing this crap about it's affecting the community. Well, that person shouldn't have made the decision that led to this. This isn't the cause. This is the effect. ICE going after these people. Okay, so stop with the propaganda, NPR, and hopefully they will soon because, again, they got defunded. So continuing with this quote, it says, stripping people from their families, this is beyond politics. Again, They made their decision. They are responsible for what happened. Okay, I am totally unsympathetic to this argument. It says, so Garcia's problem is not so much with ICE agents wearing masks as it is with ICE agents doing their jobs. Yeah, that's what it seems. In any event, condemnation of mask-wearing ICE agents rings hollow when it issues from the same institutions that applauded mask-wearing BLM rioters in 2020, mask-wearing abortion demonstrators in 2022, and mask-wearing pro-Hamas agitators in 2023-2024. And as I said in a previous video, I think a couple days ago or so, that if the people wearing masks support the Democrats, they're totally cool with it. Like all these examples right here that I just read. But if it's someone that's not supporting the Democrats, it's nope, they shouldn't be doing it. Why are they doing it? It's illegal or it's immoral. It's not. But they don't have any standards. It says the same people that are complaining about ICE wearing masks, have they ever said anything about BLM protesters wearing masks? Asked Holman. That's a beautiful question. That's right. Did they ever say anything about the mass protesters that became criminals on college campuses, that threatened Jewish students and took over buildings, destroyed property? Nope. It says aside from medical uses, the purpose of masks is to provide anonymity. This is true regardless of who is wearing the mask, although there can be more or less legitimate reasons for seeking anonymity. A protester has no legitimate reason for seeking anonymity, since the whole point of political protest is to be seen and known, and the Constitution provides protections for peaceful assembly. If someone attends a protest wearing a mask, there is a good chance they plan to commit some lawless behavior, since the anonymity a mask provides will then help them to escape identification or disappear into a crowd. That is exactly correct. This is on the other hand, a law enforcement officer carrying out his duty should be seen as an agent of the state. Except when he gravely abuses his authority or violates his instructions, or those instructions are flagrantly unjust, an individual officer should not bear personal consequences for carrying out government policy. In any event, such consequences must be determined in a court of law, not by vigilantes harassing him at home or threatening his family. Recent events have proven that ICE agents do have legitimate cause to fear left-wing violence. Earlier this month, the Department of Justice charged 10 individuals who appear to belong to an Antifa cell in a coordinated ambush of law enforcement officers at an ICE detention facility in Alvarado, Texas. Not sure if you heard about that, but yeah, I think they caught the final guy just like within the last few days from the time I'm recording this, because there was one guy that went on the run who was like, I think a former Marine or something, and they caught him. But again, I said I'm going to say now what I said earlier was, when does Antifa get designated as not as a terrorist group, but when do we start using RICO charges against them? But also, when do they get designated a terrorist group? Because I think they are. This way, they're an international organization, so I don't see. I know that some politicians have a real problem with saying like a group is like in the United States like a domestic terrorist group. So Antifa is an international organization. So I don't understand why there would be a problem at saying that they are a terrorist organization. Continuing on, it says the agitators launched fireworks at the facility and sprayed graffiti on cars. When the first police officer responded, they shot him in the neck and then opened fire on other unarmed ICE officers. That same day, another armed man fired dozens of rounds at a U.S. Border Patrol facility in McAllen, Texas. I think that person was put down, so thank God for small favors. It says that on Thursday, Representative Salud Carbajal, Democrat of California, identified an ICE employee to a mob who sought to prevent ICE officers from arresting illegal immigrants working at a marijuana farm. The mob subsequently attacked him, striking him with a thrown rock so that he required stitches in his hand. And this representative should be expelled from Congress. He should never be anywhere near the levers of power again. And I don't know why Congress is not doing anything about that, unless they are, and this has never been reported, but he should be totally thrown out of Congress. As in Portland, Oregon, agitators have repeatedly clashed with law enforcement officers outside the ICE facility, resulting in arrests on multiple occasions. These highly organized agitators deployed a shield wall and a makeshift battering ram, giving a military flavor to their intermittent siege, something that harmonizes with the graffiti death threats they left behind. It says those who complain about militarized policing overlook the reality that domestic law enforcement agencies confront increasingly militarized criminals, which require police officers to don heavy gear to keep themselves safe. And whereas many military personnel live on secured bases, police officers and their families live in ordinary houses on ordinary streets, making them far more vulnerable to off-duty harassment. So this may seem like a logical leap, one which makes the assumption that left-wing agitators view police officers, particularly ICE officers, as enemies on a personal level. Yet that assumption appears to be true. There is no other rationale for doxing individual ICE officers. Left-wing radicals subscribe to a totalitarian Marxist ideology, which means that their political convictions consume the totality of their life and threaten to consume the totality of others' lives too. Yes, and they want you to be brought into their misery. That's part of the problem. So this totalitarianism combines with a rejection of democratic principles to create a dangerous revolutionary cocktail. Left-wing radicals reject the concept of nations and borders as such. Therefore, they object to American immigration law, which proposes to define and defend our nation's border. Instead of organizing a popular movement to rewrite immigration law, these radicals prefer simply to obstruct its enforcement through demonstrations of naked power. Failing to muster the power necessary to override the state, they have diverted their energies to target the individual agents of the state who are individually far weaker. It says, from comparisons to the modern-day Nazi Gestapo to glorifying rioters, the violent rhetoric of these sanctuary politicians is despicable. This violence against ICE must end, said Assistant DHS Secretary Tricia McLaughlin in a statement provided to the Washington Stand. Again, who is the Washington Stand? I don't know. I'm going to have to look them up after this. As every day, the men and women of ICE put their lives on the line to protect and defend the lives of American citizens. And remember, these illegal immigrants are not American citizens. You want to come in the legal way, I got zero problem with that. I never will have a problem with that. But you're doing it the way you're doing it, you're a problem, and you're not an American citizen. It says, for courageously assuming this risk, left-wing agitators would punish ICE officers by putting an even larger target on their backs. This is not only fundamentally unjust, it is also a direct assault on the American government and should be treated as such. We will prosecute those who dox ICE agents to the fullest extent of the law. Good, that's what should happen. It says these criminals are taking the side of vicious cartels and human traffickers, declared DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. We won't allow it in America. And I know we're only, 6 months into Trump's second term here, and God, it feels like years at this point because of all the crap happening. But hopefully by the end of his term, we can get a lot of this cleaned up. So there you go. More BS from people trying to commit violence against ICE agents. And again, like I said in my prior video about the similar topic, do not do that. It's not going to end well for you. So let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.